Well, I'm really starting to get used to this, sitting down with you and talking to you and hearing what you have to say and all your wisdom. So thanks for being back with me today. We'll just dive right into it, because this is a topic that I think weighs on the hearts of many, especially during this time, and that is anger. And there's so much anger these days in our culture, in our families, and every aspect of life. And so how do we approach this concept of anger?
Brian, I think you're right that culture seems to be seething, filled with incriminations and wrath, with almost no one listening to anyone, but just expressions of frustration that boils over into pretty desperate and oftentimes despicable actions, even resulting in the death of innocent people. So I believe both among Christians and in the general culture, folks tend to see anger as both wrong and also as the only resort, that somehow it's not possible to be listened to unless there's angry expression and public demonstration of anger. So to be clear, for Catholics, the teaching is that anger is a passion and is therefore morally neutral. In other words, we really can't control the fact that we get angry. It really is how we approach the resolution of anger and what is our responsibility to sometimes act because of our anger. That brings probably the rest of this conversation to its level of helpfulness to others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of going off of that too, how do we de-escalate ourselves and others who may be experiencing this morally neutral feeling and are tempted to act on it?
So acting on it is sometimes a good thing. Anger can really motivate us to deal with injustice. Jesus got angry frequently in the New Testament, but his anger typically was aimed at a wrongdoing to the innocent that needed to be addressed, and an openness to helping those who were doing unjust things to change. And maybe here's an interesting approach. If I can get to the point in my life where even with those who are acting unjustly, those who I feel anger toward, my ultimate goal is healing, reconciliation, and change. Now I can temper my anger, because now I'm approaching anger, believe it or not, with hopefulness that things can get better. I suspect in our culture right now, people have become enraged because they don't see the possibility that things will get better.
That is so true. And going off of that as well, some people say their anger and actions are justified. So what would we say, or what would you say for those who say, well, I'm angry for a reason and my actions are completely justified?
Right. We all are used to thinking that we have the freedom to act. But freedom really is a freedom to do what ought to be done, not a license to do whatever I feel like doing.
Mm-hmm.
So my action needs to be aimed at correcting the wrong, being open to restoration, looking always at what is the common good of the community. Will my action bring a better social impact in the community? Will it help the poor? And will it create an atmosphere where others can grow to become more human, more moral, in other words? Actions that have just as their goal an expression of my will forced against others or forced against a nebulous society are not, seldom going to accomplish anything worthwhile.
That is so true. And as an active parishioner, I listen to your homilies all the time, every Sunday, and I pay attention. And in a previous homily, you had mentioned you got to look out for what's your tipping point, right? What's going to push your buttons so that when you do feel angry, you're going to go and act in a negative way. What is your message to countering those buttons or that tipping point when you feel that way?
Crucial is self-awareness, right? To know who I am and to know what my personal tipping points are. Good expression, tipping point. What is it that will push me over the edge? Impacting that right now is the general health situation of the world, the unsettled nature of COVID-19, and our cultural response to it. It's so hard to get truthful information. I think it's kind of a given that people don't trust the media, they don't trust the politicians. And as a result of that, in the absence of truth, it's difficult to have a base in reality. If I'm angry already about this sort of turmoil that's around, if I have a great deal of anxiety, if I'm filled with restlessness, if I feel isolated, that nobody knows or cares, then it becomes very, very difficult for me to address anger before it gets to that point of exploding, so to speak. So one of the good things to do is to ask others to help hold you accountable, to be self-aware in the sense of a deep peacefulness that really we think can come from ourselves, but really can only come from a power greater than ourselves, who will restore us to sanity, who will bring us to serenity and that deep sense of peacefulness if we will allow him. But absent a sense of a power greater than ourselves and left to our own devices and the cultural milieu that we're in, it can be very difficult to battle anger.
Yeah, and for me, I know I have a tendency to let it boil up inside, hold it in, don't tell anybody until it's just too much, right? And so some of your lessons there really hit home, and I appreciate it. I really thank you for the lessons you've given us today, not only today, but in your homilies. So for the audience out there, go back and watch some of your homilies, because they're really rich in knowledge and wisdom. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.